Australia has reversed its verdict to cut funding from the Invictus Games. A lot of veterans are actually more upset, asking where all the money actually goes to. Here's the problem. Of $118,000 per veteran competitor. What? This is insane.
535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment. And Harry and Meghan got a really nice vacation out of it with lots of adorational speeches and clapping and crowds gathered for them.
Something strange is happening around Prince Harry's Invictus Games, and people are finally starting to ask questions nobody wanted to touch before. Just weeks after reports claimed Australia was pulling funding from Invictus, the government suddenly reversed course and agreed to continue support for another 3 years. Officially, it was about helping veterans. But online? Critics are calling it damage control. And now, the backlash is getting louder than ever. Because this isn't just about sports anymore. People are now digging deep into the numbers behind the Invictus Games, and what they're finding has sparked outrage across social media. According to reports surrounding the 2025 Games in Canada, more than $63 million may have been spent for just over 500 participants. That's over $100,000 per competitor. And many veterans are now asking the same uncomfortable question: where exactly is all this money going? Some supporters say Invictus changes lives and gives wounded veterans purpose, community, and hope. But others argue that millions of taxpayer dollars could be used more directly for housing, medical support, prosthetics, mental health treatment, and struggling military families instead of massive celebrity-driven events. And that's where the controversy explodes. Because critics are also pointing toward financial documents with heavily redacted sections, hidden budget details, and growing calls for transparency. If public money is involved, people want answers. They want receipts. They want accountability. But the problems don't stop there. At the same time, Prince Harry is facing renewed criticism over his connection to African parks, after disturbing allegations involving abuse claims against rangers linked to the organization resurfaced yet again. While Harry himself has not been accused of wrongdoing, many are questioning why he continues to stay connected to organizations surrounded by so much controversy. Now social media is turning on him fast. For years, Harry carefully built an image as the royal who walked away from privilege to become a humanitarian leader. But tonight, critics are asking whether that image is beginning to crack. Is the backlash fair? Is Invictus being unfairly targeted? Or are people finally asking the questions the media avoided for too long? Let's break it all down.
I don't think a lot of veterans actually are devastated. The reality is, if you go deeper into Invictus, a lot of veterans are actually more upset, asking where all the money actually goes to and how they're playing with the veteran money, because they're getting a lot of funding from countries and places to get this, what would typically be veteran support income, that then goes to putting on the Invictus Games. Now, again, I'm not trying to be, belittling what the Invictus Games is trying to do, but I am asking the question of, is it really the best use of veteran funding? Why can't Harry get his own funding? Why is he relying on all these countries to do it for him? And that's the big problem, as a lot of these people are, and Harry is coming under fire for shocking financial expenditures by his beloved, just months after he and his wife revamped their philanthropic foundation, was shamed for its exorbitant spending and paltry contributions. Radar can reveal the ensuing scandal could permanently torpedo his chances of returning to the royal fold. He's being body slammed, a report charging that the 2025 Invictus Games in Canada cost $63.2 million for only 543 participants. So that translates to a cost of $118,000 per veteran competitor. What? Let's really break that down for a second, because yeah, they want answers. I want answers. Look at this again. A multi-sport event funded by the Duke of Sussex in 2014 is now coming under scrutiny after reports revealed it allegedly cost $63.2 million to host 543 participant veterans. This breaks down to an estimated $118,000 spend on each participant. That has now sparked outrage among veterans, and it should spark even more outrage in Australia, who made the right decision and cut this, realizing this wasn't the best use of our funding for the veterans. But then they now reversed it due to some outcry. after the report, people now have questions about how it's spending. And I want to show you this this is an Instagram reel that came in asking some serious questions. Why is the budget so redacted? It's a charity, yes, for veterans. Montecito Minimalist is correct. Unredact the budget. Canadian people need to know where their tax dollars are going. I couldn't agree more. As you're scrolling through, why would there be so many redactions? Why would anything need to be honestly redacted? This is a charity form. Oh, look at that whole page redacted around the budget. Like, excuse me? What? Huh? How does he allow to get away with this? But look at this budget commercial blocked out. What is happening?
It's looking more and more like a scandal hiding in plain sight that the mainstream media don't want to go near. I mean,
I think they're starting to go near.
Well, good,
I think
good.
they're
So
starting to go near.
tell me, why has this been
here-
covered up until now?
I think it's people get freaked out by tax returns. And I also think sometimes people are a little bit lazy. They hear things, they say, oh, Invictus games, 4 Wounded Warriors, which sounds like the Wounded Warrior games. And people think, oh, this must be great. And a lot of people are unclear how to read a tax return or to check stats. And so I think it was just very easy to say, oh, the Invictus games, it's great. It does all this. And then you start looking into it and you're like, hey, what the heck is going on here? Those 535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment. And Harry and Meghan got a really nice vacation out of it with lots of adorational speeches and clapping and crowds gathered for them.
The timing of this entire situation could not have been worse for Prince Harry. For months now, criticism surrounding the Invictus Games has been quietly building online, but suddenly everything exploded at once after reports claimed the Australian government initially planned to cut funding connected to the organisation before unexpectedly reversing the decision. That reversal instantly triggered speculation across social media, with critics accusing Harry's team of scrambling behind the scenes to save the funding before the negative headlines became even more damaging. Supporters of Invictus argued that veterans depend on the program and that removing support would hurt wounded servicemen and women who benefit from the games emotionally and mentally. But critics weren't convinced. In fact, many people claimed the backlash wasn't really about veterans at all. They argued the real frustration comes from growing questions about how enormous amounts of money are being spent behind the scenes while ordinary veterans continue struggling with housing, healthcare, trauma support, prosthetics, and financial hardship. And that's where the numbers started causing serious outrage online. According to reports tied to the upcoming 2025 Invictus Games in Canada, the event allegedly carries a cost of more than $63 million while involving just over 500 participants. Once people began doing the math, the internet erupted. Critics claimed the estimated cost per participant was unbelievably high, with some calculating it at well over $100,000 for each competitor involved. Almost immediately, people started comparing those figures to other veteran programs that operate with significantly smaller budgets. Online commentators began asking why so much taxpayer money appeared to be going toward a celebrity-backed sporting event rather than directly into veteran support systems. Some questioned whether the games had become more focused on global branding, publicity, luxury venues, and royal attention rather than the veterans themselves. At the center of the backlash is the uncomfortable question many people are now repeating everywhere online: where exactly is the money going? That question became even louder after images of allegedly redacted financial documents began circulating online. Social media users zoomed in on blacked-out sections of budgets and financial pages, accusing the organization of hiding important information from the public. Critics argued that if taxpayer money is involved, there should be complete transparency about every expense connected to the games. Why were certain details hidden? Why were some categories blocked out? Why, according to critics, did a charity event tied to veterans require so much secrecy in the first place? Those questions fueled even more suspicion online, especially among people who were already skeptical about celebrity charities in general.
If you asked all of those competitors at the Invictus Games, what is more important here, you could get a check today for $120,000, which would transform your life, or you could be part of what is effectively a PR stunt. I mean, all of those details and betrayal were just so damning. Like, the audiences were basically shipped in to sit around Harry and Meghan to make it look as if it was a popular event, whereas actually there were just a handful of people watching most of the games. As you say, a lot of these competitors were not in their wheelchairs, and apparently, Paul, you're totally un-PC if you point that out, because some of them may have mental scars. But I'm sorry, that was never my understanding of what the Invictus Games was about. You know, if that's the case, why is Harry not competing himself? Because trust me, he's mentally scarred for a whole load of reasons.
They don't let, and I am not diminishing PTSD at all. But again, those funds could have really gone for PTSD help.
Yes.
They could have gone for a lot of other things.
Because PTSD doesn't impact how you physically compete. That is the critical difference here.
But I am hearing some other rumbles from inside the Invictus Games Foundation itself, that they are trying to keep it together through Birmingham, and then there may be a bit of a kind of a blow up. It is very difficult because Harry has gotten rid of people at places like the Invictus Games Canada, where 2 people resigned, were pushed out because they disagreed with Harry. Harry then put someone else in the place who is a huge supporter of Harry's. So there are a lot of yes men there, but there are also people who do really good work and are upset by what's going on.
Prince Harry's, yes, I got to be careful with the keywords. He's been under fire because of his African Parks charity, which again, people have asked him to step down because of the rangers that are working the nonprofit organization in African parks have been accused of, SA and terrible things, torture in the Republic of the Congo. The indigenous rights charity Survival International alleged this week that wrongdoing by the parks was ongoing in the country and called on Prince Harry to resign as a member of the organization's board of directors. African Parks handles the long-term management of 24 protected natural areas in 13 of African countries in partnership with local governments. And the group was accused back in January 2024, which we reported on here, of funding these rangers who had committed human rights abuse, including things I can't even read here, against the Baka people local to Odzala Kokuka National Park, which is under African Parks Management in the Republic of Congo. African Parks commissioned Lady Blair's law firm Omnia to investigate and admitted in May 2025 that human rights abuse has occurred, and we deeply regret the pain and suffering that these have caused. But apparently, it's still not coming. It's still not stopping. Now, I guess Harry's not always there.
Now, to be fair, supporters of the Invictus Games strongly reject the idea that anything shady is happening. Many veterans who participated in the games have publicly praised the organization for helping them recover emotionally after military service. Some say the games gave them a sense of purpose after years of isolation, injury, depression, and trauma. Others argue critics are ignoring the life-changing mental health impact these events can have on wounded veterans who often feel abandoned after leaving service. Supporters also point out that international sporting events naturally cost millions to organize due to travel, accommodations, security, staffing, venues, broadcasting, medical support, and accessibility requirements for injured participants. But even with those defenses, critics insist the financial concerns cannot simply be ignored anymore. And unfortunately for Prince Harry, this controversy arrives during an already difficult period for his public image. Over the past few years, Harry and Meghan have faced constant criticism over their branding, media deals, public appearances, and charitable work. Some former supporters believe the couple frequently presents themselves as advocates for important causes while surrounding themselves with luxury lifestyles, expensive productions, celebrity events, and high-profile publicity campaigns. Whether fair or unfair, that perception has become increasingly difficult for them to shake. Now critics claim the Invictus controversy is adding fuel to a narrative that Harry's public image as a humanitarian may not fully match the reality behind the scenes. Then came the second controversy that pushed the situation even further into dangerous territory: African Parks. The organization, which focuses on conservation efforts across Africa, has faced disturbing allegations involving abuse accusations against rangers connected to protected areas managed by the charity. Reports involving indigenous Baka communities in the Congo sparked international criticism after claims surfaced alleging violence, mistreatment, and human rights abuses linked to rangers operating within those conservation zones. Prince Harry has been associated with African Parks for years and currently serves on the board, which immediately placed him directly into the center of the controversy online. To be absolutely clear, Harry himself has not been accused of personally committing abuse or violence. However, critics argue that because of his leadership role and public involvement, he carries responsibility for addressing the allegations more aggressively and publicly. Human rights organizations and online commentators began asking why Harry remained publicly connected to the organization while such serious accusations continued making headlines. Some activists even called for him to resign entirely unless stronger action was taken. Suddenly, the image Harry spent years building began facing attacks from multiple directions at the same time. For years, he positioned himself as the prince who walked away from royal privilege to focus on meaningful humanitarian work. He became closely associated with mental health advocacy, veterans' causes, environmental activism, and charitable outreach. Many people admired him for trying to create a modern identity outside the traditional royal structure. But critics now argue that his carefully crafted image is starting to crack under growing scrutiny. Social media especially has become brutal.
When contacted for comment about the most recent allegations, the representative for the Duke referred to the May 2025 statement, which also stated specifically in Ozala, we will take action against staff members implicated in previously known incidents or those who haven't been adequately dealt with where sufficient evidence is available. However, they claimed in a statement on Wednesday that the problems on the ground have not been solved. The organization criticized the Duke, who was president of African Parks for 6 years until joining the board in 2023, for attending fundraisers events in Arizona this week as the organization seeks to raise additional $1 billion. A leader of the BACK community told Survival International, we don't work with them. The way the parks treat us here is violent. The community leader, whose identity we kept confidential to prevent retribution by the African Parks funded rangers who continue to manage, added, African Parks want to make us disappear. It's outrageous to see Harry's continued support to African Parks despite the horrific human rights abuses committed by its rangers against the Baja. Why aren't more people asking him about this? This is a problem that we've addressed for a while. It's always thrown under the rug. It's never talked about, but it's not just one instance. It's not just us bullying Prince Harry and Meghan. Oh, we're such bullies. No, this is real criticism. Why are your budgets blocked out like this? Answer us. These countries get allocated funds to put towards this. Nearly half the funding, $30 million, came from Canadian taxpayers. Now we're back to Invictus, with investigators now calling for more transparency how the money is used. Investigator Rachel Maxwell, we're showing that Instagram account, demands that the Canadian government make them explain this. That's life-changing money. Would the veterans have preferred $117,000 to purchase new prosthetics, to make their house ADA compliant, to purchase vehicles that could support their wheelchairs? She noted that similar veteran events cost far less, pointing out that the Warrior Games runs on an annual budget of about $2 million. Royal expert Hillary Forbes asked, the question I have is, does Prince Harry use the Invictus Games as a tax write-off? And is he making money off the back of veterans? If he's not, there should be full disclosure that he is not. Show us that he's not profiting. Guys, this is a big deal, and I'm going to be on it. We're going to keep our finger on the pulse of this because we need this to get out there. Veteran government funds are being used for this man to throw the Invictus Games, which again seems nice on paper, but is it actually helping? She's right. $115,000, $118,000 per participant. This is the best use of that fund? Is he nuts? If this is true, this is a reckoning that he's about to face. And honestly, between this and the African Parks, which is legit problem that he is denying, and don't get me started on all the other Santa Bella issues he's faced, this is not good for Mr. Oh, I love to go do my charity. How can we trust this man or give this man any money when we have no idea where the funds are going? We demand full transparency.
Videos criticizing Harry are spreading rapidly across YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram, with creators questioning everything from Invictus budgets to private jet use to charity transparency. Some critics accuse mainstream media outlets of protecting Harry and Meghan from tougher scrutiny for years. Others believe the backlash is politically motivated or unfairly personal. Meanwhile, supporters of Harry argue he is being targeted simply because he remains one of the most famous and polarizing members of the royal family. And honestly, that's part of what makes this story so explosive. Because depending on who you ask, Prince Harry is either a genuinely compassionate figure trying to help veterans while being unfairly attacked online, or he's a celebrity royal whose organizations deserve much deeper investigation and accountability. That divide has turned every headline into a battle. Even the Australian funding reversal became instantly politicized online. Supporters celebrated it as proof that veterans still value Invictus and wanted the funding restored. Critics saw it differently. They claimed the government folded under pressure and ignored legitimate financial concerns in order to avoid public controversy. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, but one thing is undeniable: people are paying attention now more than ever before. And that attention could become a major problem for Harry moving forward. Because once financial questions enter the public conversation surrounding charities, the scrutiny rarely disappears quickly. People begin demanding audits, disclosures, receipts, breakdowns, and explanations. Every expense gets examined. Every budget line gets debated. Every leadership decision becomes controversial. And when celebrities are attached to those organizations, the criticism becomes even more intense because people assume fame and branding may be influencing where the money goes. The biggest issue for Harry may not actually be whether wrongdoing occurred. The bigger issue could simply be public trust. If enough people begin doubting how the money is being managed, the damage to reputation alone could become enormous regardless of whether any actual misconduct is proven. That's why critics keep repeating the same phrase over and over again: transparency. They believe the easiest way to silence the backlash would be full financial openness and detailed public explanations about exactly how funding is used. But until that happens, the controversy is only getting louder. And now many people are wondering whether this moment could become a major turning point for Prince Harry's public image worldwide. For years he survived scandals involving the royal family, interviews, memoir backlash, Netflix criticism, and media attacks. But charity controversies are different. Once questions start involving veterans, public donations, taxpayer funding, and alleged financial secrecy, emotions become much stronger. Especially when ordinary veterans themselves are now entering the debate. Some continue passionately defending Invictus and credit the games for saving lives. Others argue the money could help far more veterans if redirected toward direct support programs instead of international events. And that disagreement alone guarantees this story is not disappearing anytime soon.
I mean, African Parks is literally a disaster. I mean, he still remains involved, but it is a disaster. Obviously, he has nothing to do with Centre Bali now, and it was him and his reputation and his terrible behaviour that drove that into the ground.
Well, you also know how he feels about it, because during the court case with the Daily Mail, his past notes to a Daily Mail reporter were made public, and he was mocking and saying how much he hated going out and pressing the flesh, when frankly, buddy, that's what you're there for. He seems to think I'm doing the job I was born to do, but I don't know if he understands that job. And raising money is huge. And the job is not just showing up, having people take your photos and shake some hands once every never. The job is, if you're doing it properly, it's a 9 to 10 hour job a day, actually working with people and asking for money and showing people what you're doing and creating programs that aren't just this once every 2-year games. It is support throughout the year, and this is how we help people. And by the way, we select who's coming and we pay for them. But no, that's not happening.
Because whether people love Prince Harry or can't stand him anymore, one thing is clear: the scrutiny surrounding Invictus, African Parks, and his humanitarian image has reached a level we have never seen before. At the end of the day, this controversy is no longer just about Prince Harry or even the Invictus Games themselves. It's about accountability, transparency, and public trust. Supporters of Invictus argue that the Games have genuinely changed lives by giving wounded veterans hope, confidence, and a sense of purpose after military service. And to many participants, the organization represents something deeply meaningful that goes far beyond money. But critics believe the growing financial questions cannot simply be ignored anymore, especially when reports claim tens of millions of dollars are being spent while many veterans still struggle with healthcare, housing, prosthetics, and mental health support. The backlash became even louder after online users began questioning the heavily redacted financial documents connected to the Games. For many people, the issue is simple: if taxpayer money is involved, the public deserves complete transparency about where every dollar is going. At the same time, Prince Harry is also facing renewed criticism over his connection to African Parks, which has only added more pressure to his public image as a humanitarian figure. While Harry himself has not been accused of personal wrongdoing, critics argue that leadership comes with responsibility, especially when serious allegations are connected to organizations tied to your name. Right now, the internet seems deeply divided. Some people believe Harry is being unfairly targeted because of his fame and royal status, while others think these questions are long overdue. But one thing is certain: This situation has sparked a much bigger conversation about celebrity charities, public funding, and whether famous figures should face more scrutiny over how charitable organizations operate behind the scenes. Whether this controversy eventually dies down or turns into something even bigger, Prince Harry is now under more public scrutiny than ever before. People are demanding answers, demanding transparency, and demanding accountability. And until those concerns are addressed clearly, the debate surrounding Invictus and Harry's charities probably isn't going away anytime soon. But what do you think? Is the backlash justified, or are people being too harsh on Harry and the Invictus Games? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more updates on this developing story.